Coming to you from the M&M Exterior Studio in Nooksville, Virginia, this is Flushing It Out with Samantha Spittle, the introvert's extrovert. She talks to people so you don't have to. For now.
Welcome back to Flushing It Out. I am here with my guest, Jill Perla. Jill, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Jill is, I would say, a corporate woman turned professional artist.
You got it.
I love it. Well, we were, full disclosure, we were chatting before we hit record, and I'm excited now to finally be recording because Jill and I have crossed paths, and as soon as she said she was all about sharing your story, I knew that you were the woman I wanted to flesh it out with. So thank you so much for being willing to flesh it out.
I am so willing, and especially with you, this is going to be fun.
Definitely. So I would love to hear, have a quick, who are you? I always ask that so people kind of know who we're talking with.
Sure. So again, my name's Jill Perla. I own an art company, and I've been doing art professionally full-time for about 10 years now. I got into the business when my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So he was going to day away camps, and he found himself doing art lessons and doing pretty well at it. And because he and I are so similar, I was like, wait a second, he's pretty good at this. I'm going to give it a try. And literally, not even lying, I picked up the paintbrush, and from then on, I can't put it down. It's ridiculous. So I've made a business out of it. Quit my big, fancy, expensive, high-paying job and said, forget it. I'm doing this. Downsized, and I'm off to the races. And I couldn't be happier doing what I do.
That's
really
awesome.
Really, yeah.
You said that so not quickly in speed, but the evolution of the story.
Yes.
But you touched upon, you put down this huge corporate job and became a full-time artist. And so I would love, I feel like that, we don't even need to go into the details of that exactly, but it's that willingness to make that huge shift, I think is just such wisdom. There's just a lot of wisdom in that, of what kind of turned you to that. And like I said, you both and I are so on the same page with peeling back the layers and kind of getting to the real stuff. So,
yeah, I mean, it's funny because when I was little, I didn't know art was going to be in my wheelhouse. In fact, when I was little, when I went to art class, I would find it intimidating, especially in grade school. The rooms are big, the smells are funny. And I was like, it was very chaotic. And I was like, what's happening here? And I took a couple classes with my sister, and she was actually good at it. And one of the teachers said, you're not so good at it. And I was like, forget it. All right, I'm not doing it. Yeah. And when you're a kid and you hear that, you're like, okay, that's no bueno. So you decide to put you're like, okay, well, I'm not creative, so we'll do something else. And so my whole life, I kept struggling with really, who am I? And where do I fit? Because my brothers and sisters were all extraordinarily book smart, super smart, Dean's List, all that stuff. And that wasn't me. And I was like, okay, so meanwhile, back at the ranch, I'm not creative, I'm not book smart. So where am I? Not creative according to the teachers, but I was a people pleaser. I was good at that. I was really good at that.
Isn't that funny? So you just said people pleasing, and before we started recording, we were kind of chatting about man, there's this huge, this people pleasing. I just feel like the older you get, the more it's revealed in you.
Yes.
And to our betterment, if that's the right word, because it's something we can kind of work on. So do you feel like the people pleasing, you kind of started to shed that as the artist emerged?
Yeah, that's actually very intuitive of you to say, but it's true. It's very true, because I knew my whole life I would always have food as a coping mechanism. I had stress would build up and I would pass out because I would get so stressed out. I know it sounds weird, but I would get so stressed out because I was trying to make sure everybody else was happy.
For sure.
That after, it would happen every 6 months. I would the stress inside of me would get so strong and big that I was like, I just couldn't handle it. And it was as hard as it sounds, it was actually kind of funny when you look back at it because of all the different places I passed out.
Oh,
if you
gosh.
would like to jog through a couple.
Oh, gosh. Wait, that worst place to pass out at. Go.
Okay. No, really, seriously. Let's see. Church was a good one. Like I was in the way back. So I like looked like I was bent over trying to find the hymnal in the front. So my brother carried me out. I passed out on a city street in Boston once. I passed out on a subway in DC. That was fun. And then I passed out off a horse in the grocery store.
So
I haven't done it in a long time.
How long did it take you to connect the dots that this was not like a medical condition? It was more of a mind. I mean, I guess it's still medical, but meaning like, mind versus.
It's funny because it took a long time. I mean, I knew deep in my heart that something was weird, but I couldn't quite figure out what it was. And I went through therapy in high school and, and a little bit in college because I did not want to go away to college. I really struggled with that. But of course, my brothers and sisters, they all went away. So that was the thing I was going to do. And that was when I started kind of peeling back the onion, to use your phrase,
Yeah.
So. But, and it's a lifetime, but it really wasn't until my mid 40s that I decided who I really am and what I really want to do. And when I decided who I am and what I wanted to do, that's when the food became secondary.
Ooh.
Yes, the food became secondary because right now, honest to goodness, it's so true. It's true.
I always say on season 1, I would say that again, Jill. And when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh. So you said when I figured out who I really was, that's when the food, and you could replace for that coping mechanism. That's when whatever coping mechanism was there became second. So good.
And it wasn't, I mean, seriously, I feel like I'm very intuitive and I understand myself because of all the things I've gone through in my life. But I think the practice of hovering over in your mind's eye and looking at your life from a different perspective down, like I'll pretend I'm like watching the ocean or something, right? And then I slowly kind of come up and I'm watching it and watching what I'm doing. And it takes practice, but once you do that, I discovered along the way that I kept weight on because I was protecting myself. I didn't want anybody to see me. And I felt the heavier I was, the more unseen I would be. And the more unseen I would be, I then would become personally secondary. And then other people would become first. I would be the pleaser because I'm in the back seat at all times because I was not, valued because I wasn't thin, I wasn't pretty, I wasn't, perfect, right? There's a lot there. Yeah,
there's a lot. Let's unpack that because I can't relate to that at all. Just kidding. Hashtag my life. No. So I love when you said you look back from the bird's eye view. I talk a lot about this power of our stories and how, kind of looking back, I mean, the whole, I guess you could say flagship or whatever of this whole podcast started with that idea of taking something that I thought I would take to the grave and spinning it around and realizing there's a lot here to unpack. It's more than just, an embarrassing story. And I always say too, we talked before we started recording, so to fill all the listeners in, we talked about calculated vulnerability. And so I said, for me, joking about, for me, as we're kicking off this new season. So if you're a new listener, for me, it's that I, pooped my pants. And I thought I would take that to the grave. And then I realized, oh my gosh, if I'm carrying this much shame around the trivial stuff, how are we ever going to talk about the real stuff? And it was that looking back at that story and changing the narrative into, it started out saying, I'm so disgusting, I'm so horrible. And then hearing other people had done it too. And like I said, this is such a trivial, I feel like I'm sick of even saying it. Not really, because of course I'll talk about stuff all the time, but it's such a trivial example, but we all carry around these heavy things, much heavier, much more real and traumatic that we don't talk about. But it's that the more we hide it, the more it hurts us. And like you said, we have the coping mechanisms. And then we, with like for you, your example of using food, which I can relate to, it's like, it's covering up for something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny, I did lots of therapy around it, but one thing I did do that was very helpful too is hypnosis.
Really?
Hypnosis. And you have to find the right person. They have to be someone you trust extraordinarily and are willing to be vulnerable. And it's one of those things they say with hypnosis. You can do therapy that might take, say, a year, squish down in maybe 6 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's the end all be all, but it sure did. It taught me all different sort of mantras that I'll go through, which I haven't in a while, but you know, I am healthy. I am thoughtful, whatever it is. And then you kind of build that up.
That's like changing the tapes we tell ourselves.
Yes.
Because you talk a lot about your story and, which I want to talk about in a second with that a little more. But I was just thinking, we become ourselves. So for me, just sharing some of my own stuff and kind of moving from calculated vulnerability to more vulnerability.
Yeah.
For me, I've seen now that my weight has been an issue and I've fluctuated. And when I lost weight, I did it the right way and healthy and all this stuff. So I thought, I did it right. So I'm solved that problem. I can just check block that, hit the check mark and I'm good. But what I realized, and when you were saying that, I thought, oh man, I still have these tapes though, that I say to myself, which is, I'm not athletic. I am this, I am that. And so then it becomes when life gets stressful, which hello 2020, it's you fall back into, well, I'm already this person, so I might as well do this. And, for whatever it is for anyone. So
and it takes a lot of energy to think about it, to rebuild what you've been telling yourself for how many years? I mean, because life gets in the way, 2020 gets in the way, everything else gets in the way. And it's like, the word mindfulness is so kicked around these days, but, and I'm glad it is out there so much, but it is so true that you really have to sit back and think, and thinking takes time. Sometimes you just want to get that done.
Oh, totally.
Just do it. Yeah.
Well, my husband and I were joking with like therapy, so he started in January, and I remember Brene Brown talked about this too. And she talked about going to therapy is you go with like, this is my issue. This is what I need to work on. And it's like, oh, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Like all of our stuff, so we think, all I need to do is change these tapes. Like, no, there's so much we need to unpack. And
or you get frustrated with a therapist and you're looking at them like, okay, really? You're not answering my questions, ma'am, sir.
Let's move on.
I don't hear any answers.
I know. Just give me the answer. Tell me what I'm supposed to do.
They're in you. They are in you. The answers are in you.
Now, speaking of that, like I know you helped co-author the book Voices of the 21st Century.
Yes.
So I would love to hear what you kind of talked about in there and maybe peel that back a little bit.
Sure. So, we delved into a little bit about me becoming an artist, but really the fact that I was told I was not creative was a story that stuck with me for years. And I went to these classes with my sister, who is hard of hearing. She's aphasic. She was born a rubella child, and I don't know if I'm not great with all the specifics. So if there are people listening that are, scientists, doctors, forgive me, I might get it wrong. But bottom line is, there were 5 kids in the family, and she being one of them, she was the third, so right in the middle. And the doctor said it was like having that one child made it seem like there were 11 kids in the family because she was so needy of time and energy. And years ago, she was born in the 60s. People did not teach sign language. So it was me being the interpreter a lot because I was the people pleaser, right? So picture this, you're, 5, 6, and you're watching your favorite shows like Sesame Street. She has no idea what's going on because she can't hear what the TV is saying to her. No closed captioning. So here I am trying to get the storyline myself and then trying to feed it to her and talk about a lot of resentment and,
and pressure too. Pressure for that. Yeah. And
pressure that she would get frustrated. I mean, it was tough because when you're aphasic, so not only was she hard of hearing, she was aphasic. So the messages would go into her brain and she might understand them, but they wouldn't come back out correctly. Kind of like when somebody has a stroke, for example, but that was the way it was. So not only was it she couldn't hear, but she had that aphasia layered on top. So that was a difficult childhood. But I also look at everything that cups flow over, and I learned so much from that: patience, empathy, and just realizing how thankful and blessed I am personally that I have all my faculties. Now she's married, she's doing great, she's super smart. And you would look at my sister and think nothing's wrong with her. But growing up, all that work got her to where she is today. But all the work was put into her, not so much others. And
you said something that I would love to kind of zone in on is you got all the good things from it. And so this is something that sticks out with me. And of course, I always love having other people unpack their stuff because it helps me unpack my stuff. That's kind of the point of the podcast. So you said, there was this resentment, you had a really hard time, but you had all this good stuff because you are a cup overflowing person. Right. And I know for me, I'm it's like a joke amongst my friends. It's fine. Everything's fine. The light world is falling down, but it's fine because I know and it is because I know that things will be better and that this will all work for good and that, and I'm realizing, it's the not fine thing that I need to sometimes lean into more. Yeah. And so I'm wondering, is that what you started to unpack as you got older, was the not fine part about your childhood versus, so I'm so lucky not lucky, that's a horrible way to say it, but
I get it.
I got this, but I learned this and I learned this, but was it unpacking that really kind of hard stuff?
Yes. And to this day, I'm so forgetful. I love forgetting things. I love forgetting hurts. I love forgetting. And that is so helpful at times in being a compartmentalizer, to coin a phrase, is a great strategy for short-term success, but not long-term success.
A great strategy for short-term success, but not long-term success.
Take that.
Oh my gosh. Write that down, people, if you're listening. Oh my gosh. Forgetting things and compartmentalizing is great for short-term success, but not long-term. Oh my gosh. You just blew my mind.
No, and it's so true though, because I am the poster child of that. Wow. Don't do it, people. I'm old. Don't do it.
And gorgeous and amazing and a badass.
No,
but that's so good. So
that's
good.
The thing though. And once you realize it's hard. I hate hurting. I think everybody hates to hurt. But there's some people out there that I swear, like my other sister, God love her, but she's a realist, right? Mm-hmm. She has something happen to her and she just wallows in it, gets in it, mushes around in it, messes around with it, and then she moves on. Whereas me, whoop, that didn't happen. All good here. All right, next. Let's keep moving. And then that's where it's no, fool, stop. Yes. You've got to deal with this.
Feel the feelings, all that stuff.
Feel it. Yes. It's so much more fun to laugh, though.
Oh, I know. Oh, right? I love laughing. I love laughing. I am a big cry laugher, where you cry, but you're laughing because
snort. Yes.
Yeah, because it's and not laughing so hard you cry. I mean, for me, I will cry but then I laugh because I find the
Yes.
humor in it. And it's like, man, Sam, can't you just let yourself be, you know, destroyed? But like, no, I can't totally be destroyed. I have to pull myself out with some humor or something, but because that's my coping, one of my coping mechanisms.
Yeah, because you're afraid. I think my biggest fear in life is the fear of getting, because my mom, now this is another little tidbit about me. My mom has bipolar depression.
Mm-hmm.
So layer that onto everything. So she would be with migraines or completely out. So I would have to deal with her, right?
Yes.
Not deal with her, but handle things. Like I became the default mom sometimes. And I think I carry so much pressure to be positive because I was deathly afraid that one day I was going to wake up not being able to do it and having to stay in bed. And that's something that is I carry with. And when somebody say, oh, there's so much stigma around mental health than there was years ago, it's now starting to be a little bit more open, but you know, if your arm's broken, you fix it. If your mind's broken, you got to be able to fix it, right?
Totally.
But nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about it.
That's so funny you say that because I've struggled with migraines since like 4th grade. And it's just this year, you know, unpacking more of life. Because I already went through the whole roller coaster of these are my fault, like feeling. Because shocker, I'm a people pleaser. You know, I'm trying to be a recovering people pleaser, but I think I'm still a people pleaser.
Yeah.
But I went through all of this. It's my fault and And because when you hear that, like, it's connected to other stuff, I kind of interpreted that as I'm causing it. So I thankfully worked through some of that. Like, okay, I'm not causing it, but I'm also trying to do more with noticing. That's why you said mindfulness. I love a term that keeps coming over and over again, you know, just when you read books about healing brokenness and all that kind of stuff, it's notice it. And so I'm trying to do a better job to say, okay, if I feel a feeling, I think what I've done for so long is like pushed it down. And I didn't think I was, because I'm all about processing and peeling back the layers and connecting.
Right.
But it's almost like that's it's like in conversations or for me, you know, I feel like God has blessed me with, you know, good friendships where I'm able to do that, you know, or, but if I'm not in that space where I'm peeling back the layers, then it's just carry on, get it done. So it was almost like I fooled myself, I think, because I thought I was this person who dealt with the stuff, because I did when it was safe environment.
Right.
But it's like, I learned this the last few years when I really started kind of dealing with my migraines more, I was a go person. Yeah. But I was popping Excedrin all the time.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
I don't even want to tell you how many years.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, I can't go because that runs me down. And if the only way I can do it is with Excedrin, you know, or that was a coping mechanism.
Right.
And now it's like, oh, if I start to feel these feelings, kind of notice them.
Yes.
Because maybe I need to take a break or not go do something or talk about something, you know, maybe it's all this stuff that I just feel like finally is starting to click a little bit.
Yeah. It's funny when you say migraines, my mom would get those migraines, and, you know, I don't get migraines, but I know when I'm super stressed, sometimes I get those little wiggly line things.
Yeah. The auras.
And I'm like, oh boy, I'm going down. And, you know, you get it. I'm so thankful. I get just a headache and I'm on with it, but your body tells you so much, and you just have to listen to it. You just have to listen, because it really, humans are so amazing. I mean, the brain and the body and how it all works together. And
it's amazing.
If you just open your ears up and listen to it, you're like, oh, maybe that's wrong, right?
Yes.
And it's not supposed to be like this. And I think, like you were saying earlier, that sometimes you go through things and you're like, check the box and just keep moving. Well, sometimes like you said, you think you've processed it, but it comes back again, and you have to be able to understand and soft with yourself is probably not the right word, but gentle with yourself.
Yeah.
like you
Give
are
yourself
others.
grace. Yeah.
Yeah, grace, and say, you know what? Who cares? It's coming back a little bit. Let it be. Let it just sit there for a minute, you know?
Yep.
And I think that's where I put so much of my energy and work into my art. And that's how I process a lot of things too, is just kind of dumping it.
Now, when you work on a piece, do you have the picture in mind, or does it kind of flow through the process?
Well, normally what I do is I do a lot of commissioned work, right? Mm-hmm. So meaning people come to me and say they want me to create something for them, which then I become the channel for their vision. Ooh. And my ego is not in there. And I know it sounds heady and all this weird stuff, but honestly,
I love it.
When somebody comes to me and says they want me to paint for them, subject, color, size, shape, whatever, fine. We get kind of that down. But then we start talking about, what are your values? What is your family about? What is it that you want in that room? What is it? What's the mood you want? Do you need more energy? What is it? Is your family connected? Do they need more connectivity? And, they have no idea that I'm sussing out all this when I'm talking to them, when I interview them. But those are all the things that I need for myself to start going through the process. And that to me is the ultimate, to be able to channel what people's vision and how they visually want to direct their space through me, the artist.
I was just thinking like, oh man, I feel like you're almost, I can't think of it's not therapy. So that's not the right word, but yeah, I wonder, I'm curious, someone was telling me this activity they did recently where everyone went around and, it was Dawn. She's a life coach. She specializes with moms. And so she talked about, what is your definition of a badass? And she had the women, she runs like a mom's group. And so she said, but you're not giving the definition. You're just think of a woman who who's a badass. And we're going to go around and tell her story. Why is she a badass? So the people told the story of who this person was in their mind that was the badass. And what everyone else in the room did that listened to her, they all said words back to them to help that person who was doing the talking, right, come up with their what I heard from your story is this word came up in my mind and this word, and they almost told her back what her definition of a badass was. Right. And I loved that, because I thought sometimes we have a hard time putting into words our values or our beliefs. And so when you were talking about the painting, I thought, oh my gosh, it is like people almost like sharing their stuff. I'll try to be better with my language, sharing their stuff with you. And you almost are able to then give them back the reflection. And it's because you worked out your own stuff that you can do that. Yes. Yes. And here's the deal. Cool. It's funny. One of the things I was talking to somebody else and they said, what do you do if somebody hates the art and they come to you and say, I don't like it? I say, thank you. I say, thank you. In all honesty, I'm like, good, because we started and you have the honesty to tell me where you're at, because this piece is for you. You're saying to me, because I have to put something out. I have to start, right? I have to start somewhere. Like this, you can't see because we're doing a podcast, but the piece behind me is a couple layers in. And the first go was too tight and traditional. And after talking to them, they want more flow in their life. They want more movement in their life. They want more forward thinking in their life. So I said, great, we're in the messy middle right now, and we're going to work through that. And so I brought that feeling into the canvas, and now we're even farther along. So it's bingo, it's getting there. Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. And I just thought, Jill, imagine 20-year-old Jill having someone say, I don't like it, and you saying, great. Right.
Bingo. See, here's the deal. Here's the end all be all. I'm 54. Okay. If I did this when I was 20, it wouldn't happen. It would not have happened. So all the crap that I went through my whole life is why I'm able to do what I am able to do. The paint is just a vehicle. Some people write, some people sing, some people make you laugh like you.
Yes.
This is my way because I'm not a book person, even though I did all that and I faked my way through it, right? You know, we do that. We do that.
Yeah. We all got to do something sometimes.
Right. This is my contribution to the world. And it sounds heady and odd, but it's like, no, I want to help. I want to help you.
I'm so blown away. You know, it's podcasts, so you can't see my face. I mean, you can, but I'm so blown away because so I recently did a mindful painting class where it was like we went into our, you know, we did mindful, like a meditation and did it. And it was amazing. And so I started to get it. I started to get how your subconscious can kind of work, and it was amazing. And I never thought about how you as the commissioned artist can help people not only bring their vision to life, but work out, you know, and even if they don't know they're working it out, but just that you're able to reflect that to them.
Right. Because a lot of it's a fine line. I have to look at my clients, and sometimes it's husbands, wives, sometimes it's a wife. Sometimes it's just a piece they want to pull the room together. You know, a simple hydrangea, whatever. That's fine. Something light and fluffy. Sometimes, and most of the time, it's something for their living room or their family room or their dining room where they're going to gather. And they'll say, listen, we have big family talks here. We don't want something that's flat and dull. We want something that's going to energize and engage everyone to be part of it. And that's what I'll put in there. So, yeah.
I think that's so cool. Like I said, people don't even know they're doing it. Like they don't even know that that's happening. But I always joke a lot of times when you work with customers, you know, in any field, I always joke, you know, it's almost like you're the therapist, not real kind of therapy, but, or the mediator or something. Sure. And it's like this whole art, but it's almost like you're able to do that. Cause I'm the type that I don't know what I want. Like I'll say, oh, just Jill, paint me a piece. And then I would see it. And then it's like,
but that's not it.
Right. Yeah. But you have to get that out and think how much, you know, so often we feel stuff, but we don't know what we're feeling.
Exactly.
And the art, it's like, oh, I'm just connecting all these dots right now that like, oh, the art gives us something to bring the stuff inside that we don't have words to.
Yes. I wrote it down at one point. You are causing the future with the visual content. So many times people do vision boards, and it's mostly women. I don't know how many men do vision boards. God love you if you do. I think it's great. But almost think of the art that I'm creating for people as visual content that you're using in your space daily. This art is going to become part of your life, part of your family, another family member. That's what the art is going to do.
If you would have told me that 30 minutes ago, I would not have like that quote in and of itself, I would have said, I don't know. I'm not really that much into art. I don't think so. And now I mean, this is why I love peeling back layers, because now that we've gone through everything, totally get it. And I told you we did the mindful painting class. And so to kind of, to give a real life example, the way it worked is, you know, you just literally painted whatever color you were drawn to. And I mean, if you've never done it, it sounds so like hard woo-woo. To grasp. Yeah, woo. Yeah. But then once you get, and what's so funny is, so I started it and I knew I wanted to do something with the water, something similar to the picture behind you. And I started doing all these like wisps, waves, and all this stuff. And what I found myself, like maybe my subconscious saying was, no, that's too crazy. You are more settled than you think you are. So it was almost like my conscious thought, oh, I'm all over the place. Oh. And once it was there, I thought, no. And I painted over it and I made it like a calm, serene water.
Right.
And I would not, had I not had the experience, I would not have But now when you talked about how the art is this reflection and all this stuff, now when I look at that piece I did, it totally makes sense. So.
It does. And I think so many times linear thinkers are celebrated in society because they go logically 1, 2, 3. I married one of those. I kind of had to. It's best that way for everyone involved.
Right.
Because I prefer 8 balls in the air spinning in 6 different directions and then me catching it every once in a while. That's how I thrive.
Yes.
And that's how and if it's otherwise, life's boring.
Yes.
It's a circus in my head. I say that all the time.
Oh my gosh.
I think it's fun that way. And but you with the wisp, it's almost like, I think sometimes people think that people who are artists, or maybe they're flakes, or they don't think the same way. Well, we do. We just think in different orders, possibly. Like sometimes not at the end. Sometimes I think starting with the middle. Sometimes I think to the side. Yes. I mean, there's all different ways to think.
I love that.
And being open to all of it.
So good. Jill, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today. I feel like we only scratched the surface of your story. So I hope you'll be able to come back, because I feel like there's just so much good stuff. And if people want to find you, whether it's your book, to read more of your story, or your art, to find your art, or even to commission a piece. And do you do classes too? I believe you do, right?
I do.
That's what I thought. Well. So how can everyone find you?
Sure. So my website is jillperlaart.com. Super easy. Facebook, Instagram. Follow me there for all the photos and fun stuff. It's jillperlaart.com. And I do run a online art class. It's a club, so it's once a month, and that is the Creative Kickstart. And that's also on my website. So fun stuff all the time.
Awesome. And your book is Voices of the 21st Century. Powerful, passionate women who make a difference. That's amazing.
And it's already an international bestseller.
Yay. Cool? That is amazing. Well, it's no surprise, because you are a powerful, passionate woman. And so, Jill, I'm going to have to go back and listen to this, because there's so many nuggets that you said that I can't even remember them all, because it just kept blowing my mind. So thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. It was an absolute pleasure.
This was amazing. Thanks for helping us get this season 2 kicked off with a bang. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap for now.
Thanks for listening to Flushing It Out with Samantha Spittle. Please visit our website at flushingitout.com for all things Flushing. And be sure to subscribe and spread the word so that others can get out of this podcast what you do. This has been a Spitfire production.
That was the greatest thing I've ever heard.